Welcome to Conversations with a Wounded Healer. I'm your host, Sarah Bueno. I'm a psychotherapist, teacher, consultant, and most importantly, a wounded healer, living and working in Skokie, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. This is a space for thought-provoking, unscripted conversations with people from all walks of life, united by the shared mission of healing ourselves while promoting healing in the world around us. Whether you're here to find inspiration, learn, or simply feel seen, you're invited on this journey of healing from the individual to the collective. Thanks for joining me. Oh my God, you guys. Has anybody seen that? Legally Blonde, the musical? I've never seen it, but I did watch the show. And that's the first thing that came to my mind because today is our 7-year anniversary of Conversations with a Wounded Healer. Can you believe it? I cannot. So much has changed for me in 7 years that I can't. I should have thought about that. What has changed in 7 years? I can't tell you all of that right now. But if you've listened to the podcast, you know. Or you can go all the way back to the beginning if you haven't. But to celebrate our big 7-year anniversary, I have a giveaway and it's going to be amazing. But I want to hear from you. So that's the catch. You don't have to pay anything to enter, but you do have to fill out a survey. So I have a survey. It's at tinyurl.com/CWH giveaway 25, CWHGIVEAWAY 25. And there's a shitload of stuff you can win. I reached out to a bunch of folks who've been on the podcast before to see who was willing to give us some free stuff. And we got some stuff for you. So first thing you're going to get a 17% discount on any workshop, group, or event hosted by moi, Head, Heart, Biz Therapy in 2025. I'm going to give you a copy of the Ripple Deck by The Right Use of Power, a signed copy of the book Healing Justice by Loretta Piles, a signed copy of Being White Today by Shelley Touchluck and Christine Saxman, a free spiritual reading with Virginia Castillo, a free coaching and consulting session with Mashara Winston, a free entry into the Right Use of Power Basics training, a free month of embodied transformation membership with Comfy Fitness, a lightning coaching session by Allison Stager, and lastly, either one of these two, 17% off Create Your Program or 50% off a one-to-one business strategy session with Annie Schuessler. Woo! That's pretty exciting, right? So go to tinyurl.com/CWH giveaway 25. Fill out the little survey. It's mostly about you, but I also want to hear a little bit of feedback on the podcast. Would also love, asked you in there if you'd give us a little review love. And I hope you win. That's going to go through April 2nd. So you have from today, which is March 5th, until the end of the day, April 2nd, to fill that out. And then we're going to choose a winner who gets all of that stuff. It's going to be amazing. So today's guest is somebody who I got to meet and develop a relationship with via my Authentic Leaders group. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about the Authentic Leaders group. It's an 8-month program. And I have up to 10 practitioners who are leaders in a group practice in some sort of way. So whether it's they're the owner or clinical director or manager or supervisor or whatever, all of those folks are invited into an 8-month process. And there's some psychoeducation, there's some group activities, there's some like take home, I call it home play instead of homework. Oh my God, so cheesy. And we spend time essentially stepping into authentic leadership as much as we possibly can. And I met Cara in that group, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what that was like. This conversation, when our producer, Andrea, was listening to it, she's like, this is a really good example of how it is that you work with people when you work with them on an individual level. So I just wanted to also tell you that, like, you can work with me if you want to. Right now, I'm working with leaders. So whether you're a group practice owner or in a leadership role in some way, those are the people that are my jam. And you can find out more about working with me at www.headheartbiztherapy.com/consultation. what else do I need to tell you? Oh, we also reference my Burnt Out Practice Owner series that I released in 2024 that talks about all the challenges of being a practice owner. So we reference that. If you missed any of that, you can certainly go back into the podcast feed and listen to all those episodes. And two super exciting announcements. One thing I'm just going to tell you a snippet of right now, and then a couple weeks you'll hear all of it. But shortly, I'm going to be launching a platform called Group Practice Revolution. And there's going to be a podcast component to that as well. So in the feed in a couple weeks, you're going to see something dropping called Group Practice Revolution. You'll be like, what the fuck is this? Don't worry, you'll get to know more about it then. But I'm very excited about it. And then the last super exciting announcement is we are going to be on YouTube. Yes, I have finally acquiesced. I truly, absolutely hate recording videos because I hate seeing myself on video. It's why I created a podcast in the first place. So I'm so frustrated that everything's moving to video, but I'm acquiescing and we're going to be posting full hour-long videos of Conversations with a Wounded Healer onto YouTube. We're going to post them. I know this is a little confusing, but we're going to post the full hour-long episodes on the day that the part 2 of our guest episode drops. I know it sounds a little confusing. You'll get the hang of it. I'm guessing most of you will continue to just listen to the podcast, but if you are really a video person and you just want to see my weird little face, you can go over there and find it. You'll get the hang of it. I believe in you. Okay, on to today's guest. So today's guest, actually, let me tell you a little bit about our combo first. So Cara and I spent some time exploring her journey to becoming a therapist and the ways that she's navigated things like self-doubt and lack of confidence and imposter syndrome through her career. And we even do a little smidge of a NARM sesh with her. And we discuss a lot of the intuitive parts of being a therapist that go alongside the learned skills that we develop in school. And Cara also shares a bit about her leadership journey and how it was to work together in my Authentic Leaders group. So without further ado, Cara Chae, LCPC, is a psychotherapist working in a group practice in Chicago. Her professional interests include working with attachment-related trauma like parenting, relationships, and childhood wounds. More recently, she's begun learning how to support clients with neuroplastic symptoms. Cara's second full-time job is parenting her 2 elementary school-aged children while trying to simultaneously take care of herself too. So please enjoy my conversation with the lovely Cara Chae. Hello, Cara. Welcome to Conversations with a Wounded Healer.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Should we let the audience know that you're nervous? Should we tell them that? Yeah.
Sure.
And I told you before we started recording, I do love popping podcast cherries. So that's what you're doing today. So this is brave.
Yeah. You're welcome. I'm happy to be able to provide you with that experience.
It's because it's all about my pleasure and enjoyment, of course. Right. So to let folks in on how you got here. So I am friends with Farah Baig. Is it Baig? I've never even asked her how she pronounced her last name, Baig. Mm-hmm. And you work for Farah. And I have my Authentic Leaders group, the first round, and Farah was like, I got a gal for you. And so we spent 8 months together, and you were the one who reached out the most with like questions and like inquiry, and like you were just always digging into something and like really taking a bite out of what I was, giving to the group. And I don't know. I felt such a, not that I wasn't resonating also with other folks, but our conversations really helped me get to know you so well. And I dig what you are doing in the world and what you're thinking about and who you're trying to be. And so, I asked you to be on the podcast and you were like, but here we are.
We are here.
Yeah. So do you want to tell people a little bit more about you other than you're anxious to be here?
Sure. And I want to add, I've listened to your podcast long before really even connecting the dots of maybe how you might have known Farah professionally. It all just kind of happened. And then I learned she was in that group with you, the group practice owners group. And I think I found your group. And
you did first?
Her, like the Authentic Leaders. Cool. Yeah. Because on the pod, you would advertise on the pod. But a little bit about me. I'm a I'm a counselor, LCPC by training, and I'm a therapist in a group private practice called Inner Voice Psychotherapy. So it's owned by Farah Bay that we've mentioned. And I've been working there for about 7 years and doing therapy and then some kind of operations, onboarding things for the last 5 years.
Yeah. So, therapist origin story. What led you to become a therapist, which I think we're all superheroes?
Okay. I think I was intrigued by the world of psychology and being 18, like that was a kind of an easy major to select, right? Some curiosity about what that could be. I think I had some lofty ideas about like forensic psychology.
Mhm.
And then after undergrad, I took a couple years working. I worked in schools as like what they call a SICA now or an aide
Mm.
because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a
Mhm.
teacher or a counselor. And that let me know I didn't want to be a teacher, that experience.
Mhm.
And honestly, kind of impulsively Googled like counseling programs or master's programs. And this was in like 2007 before I knew anything about Google and sponsored ads and the the Chicago school pops up.
So, SEO brought you to the Chicago school.
Honestly, I was
Unsurprising.
like 23. I don't know,
Wow.
just so young making these decisions,
Uh-huh.
right, of where to go to grad school. But I was curious about counseling. I thought I wanted to work with kids. I thought I wanted to be able to support children. So I came to Chicago, checked it out, liked it, and I think I was just ready for a change. So I was in Nashville, that's where I'm from. So I moved to Chicago for grad school, honestly thinking I would go to grad school and then go home. But I met a man and he ended up becoming my husband in my program, and he will not leave Chicago.
Wait,
So
so is he a counselor too?
he doesn't currently work as a counselor, but that's his training and licensure.
I didn't realize that. Oh,
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. One of the few men in the program,
Right.
right?
And you snagged
I
him.
did. And so stayed in Chicago. After graduating, it was hard to find work right away. And so I eventually started working for an employee assistance program,
Mhm.
as many do,
Yep.
and worked there for a few years, kind of tried a different hats. I was doing kind of those intake, answering the phone. Then I started doing some formal referral work where folks who are required to seek out some counseling or some
Mm.
substance abuse treatment for work, I would do essentially some case management. And I did EAP work for a number of years. I think because I was scared to practice. I was scared to be a real therapist. I had
Mm.
some doubts about my abilities to do that. But eventually, it was actually another therapist who kind of asked me if I would be interested in joining the group practice that I'm currently at
Mm.
and really like cheerleaded me. She's like, I think you'd be great. Like, come in. Like, let's get you in here. So I did that. I started there in 2017
Mm.
and I've been full time in therapist language since about 2019.
Yeah. Can we talk about doubt? Self-doubt?
Yeah, isn't that probably why we're here?
Right? And what we talked about just before starting recording that I wanna let listeners know is, like, what I hear from you, I hear from other therapists a lot, and so you are the brave soul who's gonna say the scary shit out loud so that all of the listeners can resonate, right?
Mhm.
Feel a connection and also be like, "Oh, well, she thought it was scary and she did it and she's exploring things and I guess I can do it too." So yeah, tell us about doubt and how you worked through that.
I mean, I'm still working through it, so I'll let you know. But in the beginning, I'm really good at school. Like I can
Mhm.
school with the best of them, right?
I've no doubt.
I don't mean any disrespect in saying this, but like anybody can go get a master's
Yeah.
in not anybody. Let me think of access and be respectful and talk about privilege, but
Mhm.
like getting a master's degree if you can get in the door.
Yeah.
And so I think I just had a lot of like, okay, I did it, but like that's not that big of a deal. Everything was like, that's not that big of a
Mhm.
deal. I also thought I had to get it all just right. Like I had to know the
Mm.
theories just right. I had to know who the originator of the theory was. I had to get the interventions right because school is very intervention, evidence-based
Yep.
type stuff. And so that held me back a lot. I kind of thought like I'm not good enough or, who am I?
Mm.
It was also hard to get a job. I would try to get work in places that served children, but they wanted folks with a little bit more experience.
Mm.
My grad school placement, while it was in schools, it was under the guise of like academic counseling. So it wasn't as, I don't know, that made me feel like it was less somehow. Like, what's going on that whatever I've got and I'm bringing the education I got is not enough. So that was kind of that first doubt of like, okay, I got the degree, but like, do I know what I'm doing? I can't get hired. I knew no one. Like what I
Right.
know now is that connections really help. And I knew no one from Chicago. My now husband like worked in hospitals and worked in community mental health, but and it just that didn't feel right for me. I was also on the fence at the time of like, am I going to stay in Chicago or go to Tennessee? What's going on with this relationship kind of
Mhm,
thing.
mhm.
And then it was kind of the same thing in EAP. So when I was working in, it's like a call center environment. Like you know these places like ComPsych is where I worked for a number of years, and you do build like your intake skills, which is great.
Mhm.
And then just little by slowly, I was kind of learning new things, but I still kind of had this doubt of not being like good enough. Like, yeah, I can do that, but I can't do this, or but I've never done that. So that's a little bit of how my brain, some of the roads that my brain would take me down.
Yeah. And I hope that people know this, but you clearly didn't know it at the time. When you graduate with your master's, nobody knows what they're doing.
hmm I took on a couple interns this year, and that was just coming through loud and clear for them as well. So it clearly
Yeah.
hasn't changed.
Mhm. Yeah. It's interesting because I've been teaching at Loyola since 2015 and I graduated from there in 2009 and the clinical we didn't even have a clinical track. So literally when I graduated, all I had was the experience that I'd had from my internship. We did not learn clinical interventions. Everything was centered around theory or policy. And so when I had my first client in community mental health, I was
Mm,
great at intake because my internship was in an addiction treatment center. So I was great at groups, I was great at assessments, but I didn't know how to do individual therapy at all. And I had my first intake session and then I ran up. We
mhm,
had this like giant room with all the desks in it. So like, you go downstairs to see your clients and then you'd come up and that's the bullpen where everybody is. And I ran up into the bullpen and I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this kid? And like everybody was so sweet. They were like giving me these worksheets and this and that, like all these different ideas that I could do. And it was such a shock to me at the time because unsurprising to anyone listening, I err on the side of more confidence than less confidence. And so I was kind of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be fine. I'm totally going to be able to
mhm,
do this because, I've had experience. It was such a shock to recognize how little I knew. It's
mhm,
not like I was overconfident, but I thought it was appropriate, new therapist confidence. So I try to tell my students that all of the time. They're getting even better prepared now because now they have like a micro practice track, and I'm teaching the micro practice course right now, which is really fun to like try to show them what it looks like in real life instead
mhm,
of just like reading the book. But like, I mean, I hope anybody out there who's listening who is like, I've always wanted to be a therapist, but don't know if I could do it. Like, you can. It's all of these things are learnable.
mhm.
What I think, two things that are most important that you can't teach are having the passion. And then the second thing is the art of it, which I think is related to intuition. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree with that latter part, and that's so hard to have though in your early to mid 20s.
Say that louder for the youngins in the back who want to go straight into private practice.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you just don't know who you are. Like
Yeah.
often probably dealing with your own stuff, and there's maybe those few that have been fortunate enough to maybe have access to therapy or who just are wired a little
Mhm.
bit different. But I mean, your brain's not fully developed by the time you're getting out of some grad programs, right?
If you go
So,
straight through, yeah. Mhm.
yeah, if you just go straight, it's kind of wild
Yeah.
as a parent thinking about like what we expect our kids to be capable of
Right?
at like 18.
Yeah.
But that's another conversation.
Mhm.
So that art, that doesn't come at first. That's not there in the beginning. Or I didn't, in my experience, it was not art. I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to follow
Yeah.
the rules. I was trying to know it all. Like, I felt like I had to be the expert
Yeah.
in the space. I had to know and prepare for, like, every direction that a conversation could go.
Mhm.
So, yeah, there was a lot of anxiety and perfectionism in my way.
So what supported that shift? Because I know you still question yourself, right? But so this is my impression of you. My impression is that you're so humble, but that you know what you're doing as a therapist.
Mm,
And you're starting to think, okay, now how can I challenge myself to learn even more about something really specific?
mm,
And then the questioning for you I see right now is more in the like leadership realm. Like, how do I know how to like deal with all these different leadership things that pop up? Right. So as a clinician, let's just start there. What helped you get to the other side of I don't know anything and I have to prepare for every single situation? And now, where I'm guessing most people that walk in the door, you're going to be like, I can figure this out.
mhm.
Is that a fair assessment, I guess, first?
I think that yes, like, especially that first part of trying to walk that line of being humble, but also confident and knowing that I'm good at the things that I do,
Mhm.
and that question about, like, where to go next, and another piece as you were talking, I was thinking, like, the things that I'm good at doing are also very taxing.
Mm.
It's like the type of more relational or attachment-based therapy that I do and that I'm good at and really do enjoy. It's just taxing.
Can we pull that thread?
Yeah,
Why?
because I really connect, and I think a part of what I'm good at is it's a little bit of a caregiving, like,
Mhm.
nurturing piece that I can provide that is often missing in the experiences of the clients that I really do well with.
Mhm.
I'm also a parent of young children, so I do a lot of nurturing and caregiving all the other hours of the day that I'm not being a therapist.
Yeah.
So it's not just the work, and I truly do have really good containment and boundaries around the
Yeah.
work that I do with my clients, but it's relationship, and then parenting is relationship
Mhm.
where, I hold more of the responsibility. I have to hold a lot in both of those spaces.
Mm. Can we do a little NARM with this?
Ooh, sure.
And, like, yeah, I'm not gonna, like, psychoanalyze you or anything, but, I mean, one of the because I relate to that in many ways, and NARM really helped me soften that energetic, like, mm, weight, right? It's just, like, this need to sort of make
Mhm.
sure that you are taking care of I hear the nurturing, but it's like holding, right?
Yeah.
And it does take a lot of energy to hold. And
Mhm.
so one of the concepts that we learn in NARM, we talk about the 50-50 of being 50% with yourself and 50% with the client so that you're not putting 100% into the client. And you can, like, I literally would force myself to sit back because when I get like way too invested, I start like leaning forward and like really getting into it. So I would literally force myself to lean back. And whether you want to answer this is up to you because I don't know how deep it's going to go. But if I were supervising you, the NARM question would be,
Mhm.
what are you afraid will happen if you don't put that much energy into nurturing your client?
Hmm. I hope you can edit out this silence while I think about it.
Or that silence is really important.
Well, the fear, I think of the fear more as a parent. I don't know that I haven't thought of it as something I'm afraid of not being able to do as a therapist, but maybe, I mean, maybe just that they won't, feel tended to, that
Mm,
they won't, yeah, like they won't feel tended to, they won't feel seen.
mm.
Yeah, it's like you might reenact something, re-injure something, because that may have been their experience all along of not being nurtured or seen.
Mm. So in your mind, it's either you lean in and give it all, or they're not going to feel it at all.
I don't know. I think it comes a little naturally. I don't think I think about it so much. I'm trying to for the purpose of answering your question.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I get really excited about this because I do think that this is a piece that's contributing to our burnout in the therapy field. And I read an article, and it's in one of my trainings that I talk about, that there's a quote that said, because we all come from whatever fucked up backgrounds we come from, which is the reason we go into this in the first place, our preoccupations become our occupations. And so,
Yeah.
right? I know, right? So we are naturally good at it, but that doesn't mean it's sustainable and it's
Yeah.
right that you can continue living that way. So I do think that's why I wanted to pull that thread, because I am certain there are at least 80% of the listeners who are going, "Oh shit, I do
Yeah.
that too."
And it's more of the all or nothing perfectionist, goodist, right? Like,
Yep.
I have to be the good therapist,
Mhm.
I have to meet all their needs. And
Right.
working with my own like stuff with a client is still something I'm working on, and that like I enjoy getting consultation on when there's maybe something specific that's going on between me and a client. So I also want to get better at watching that in real time. I think I'm decent at
Mhm.
it, but it's just a skill to keep
Mhm.
building in life.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think I'm decent at I don't know about that whole 50-50 concept, right?
Yeah.
I'm probably somewhere else, but you have to pay attention to what's going on with you to
Yep.
really, really connect.
And I'll just say too, like I spend a lot of time supervising and consulting and all that sort of stuff. And so all of this happens to me too, right? I have my own consultants and supervisors. God bless you, Helen. I just went back to see Helen recently because I need her. So this happens to me too. So I don't want anybody listening to think like, oh, Sarah has this all together and figured out. But like, no, I need somebody to do the same thing that I'm doing for you. I think of it as we're all holding each other.
Mm, yeah. And someone else is going to be able to see something that you can't,
Right.
or, has that experience that you don't have.
Right. And for me, I think it is because I have that same experience of leaning in so hard. And for me, it definitely shifted my work with clients in a way that it made it easier to see clients. Where I was leaning in too hard the most was with being a practice owner.
Mm,
And so that's one of the things that's why I want to work with practice owners right now and leaders in therapy organizations, because almost every single therapist is doing too much emotional labor in their leadership role,
mm, I could see that.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't really worked another small business, so I can't compare it to that. But rarely in a lot of spaces are the leaders or the managers kind of thinking about maybe your emotional reaction or your trauma or what you've got going on in your life before they give you some feedback about your performance or call you in for a meeting or demand that you be somewhere. Like we don't do that.
I mean, we try to as much as we can, but also we got a business to run.
Yeah, I mean, like, we don't do it without emotional consideration. We're so considerate.
Oh, yeah, oh, I see
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Almost too much. So to your point, like,
Yeah.
overextending a little bit that the emotional side in our leadership work.
Yeah, I think for me, being a boss was the harder emotional toll than being there for like therapy is honestly one of the easiest things that I do now.
Mhm.
But all of the other stuff that I do takes a lot more mental energy, like emotional gymnastics, just like creativity
Mm,
sort of stuff. How do you feel about contrasting your therapy role with your leadership role?
yeah. I think that there have been times where I've felt that way, but I'm trying to shift a little bit clinically, and so I am finding the therapy a little taxing right now, but not necessarily in a bad way. Like, I'm trying to learn some new skills.
Mhm.
I find my leadership role a little bit gray in that it's kind of this dual relationship. I don't like directly oversee people, but I oversee systems.
Mhm.
And so if someone's not scheduling their appointments properly or, getting their notes done quickly enough or kind of following the protocol for this, I have to address that with them I find that a little bit taxing. And the relationship I'm finding right now isn't super strong between me and some of the other clinicians.
Yeah.
And so that balance of if you only hear from me, if I only email you when there's a problem, you're not going to want to get my emails. That
Right.
dings the relation. That's a lot of what I learned in your leadership group was kind of about the importance and my responsibility that I have more responsibility to build that relationship and balance those scales a little bit.
Mhm.
I find that piece taxing, kind of the social
Mhm.
part of leadership
Yeah.
or the interpersonal part, let's say.
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks to our guest for an amazing episode. Make sure to tune in next week for the conclusion of today's conversation. To find out more about our guests, you can visit www.headheartbiztherapy.com/podcast. You can find me at Head Heart Biz Therapy on Facebook and Instagram. And thanks as always to Andrea Klunder and the Creative Imposter Studios for editing, to Liam O'Donnell for the album art, and to Ben Mueller for our theme music. And I'm your host, Sarah Bueno. Until next time.